Imagine waking up tomorrow as the owner of the only international airport serving a major city. Every airline that wants to land there needs your permission. Every passenger passes through your terminal. Every suitcase rolls across your baggage system. Every taxi, rental car, parking space, coffee shop, and duty-free store depends on your airport. From the outside, it sounds like one of the safest businesses in the world. No one can simply build another airport next door. There's only one runway network, only one terminal, only one gateway connecting millions of travelers to the rest of the world. If that's true, owning an airport should be like owning the world's largest toll booth. Planes arrive, passengers pay, money keeps flowing. At least, that's what most people believe. But the reality is far more complicated, because airports have bankrupted investors. Governments have spent billions building airports that never attracted enough passengers. Entire terminals have remained almost empty, despite costing more than some skyscrapers. And even some of the world's largest airports have struggled to make acceptable returns after investing enormous amounts of capital. So the real question isn't whether airports make money. The question is how. And more importantly, why do some airports become incredibly profitable while others turn into billion-dollar mistakes? The answer begins long before the first airplane ever lands. For most of modern aviation history, airports weren't designed to generate profits. They were public infrastructure. Governments built them to connect cities, encourage trade, support tourism, and strengthen national transportation networks. The goal wasn't maximizing shareholder returns. It was making sure people and businesses could move efficiently. That remained the standard model for decades. But during the 1980s, governments around the world started looking at airports differently. Instead of seeing them only as transportation, infrastructure, they began recognizing them as valuable long-term assets. At the same time, pension funds, infrastructure investors, and private investment firms noticed something unusual. An airport isn't an ordinary business. It occupies a unique position inside an economy. If millions of people need to enter or leave a city by air, almost every journey passes through the same location. That creates something investors rarely find: a natural monopoly. Unlike supermarkets or hotels, airports usually don't compete with another airport built just a few kilometers away. The available land, environmental approvals, and enormous construction costs make new competitors extremely difficult to create. That combination attracted long-term investors from around the world. Over time, governments began selling ownership stakes, leasing airports under long-term concession agreements, or listing airport operators on stock exchanges. Today, many of the world's busiest airports involve some level of private investment. But buying an airport isn't as simple as purchasing a company. In many cases, investors aren't buying the airport forever. They're buying the right to operate it for several decades. When those agreements expire, ownership often returns to the government. For investors, that still represents an attractive opportunity. 40, 50, or even 99 years can generate enormous cash flow if the airport continues growing alongside its city. That's why some airport transactions reach astonishing values. Investors aren't paying for what the airport earned last year. They're paying for what they expect it to earn over the next several decades. Population growth, business travel, international tourism, cargo demand, economic expansion. All of these factors influence what an airport might generate far into the future. Looking only at today's profits tells only a small part of the story. Investors are really purchasing future demand. But suppose no airport is available to buy. Suppose you decide to build one yourself. That's where the real challenge begins. The first obstacle isn't airplanes. It isn't terminals. It isn't even the runway. It's land. An international airport requires an enormous amount of space, not just enough for aircraft to take off and land, but enough for taxiways, maintenance areas, terminals, cargo facilities, fuel, storage, parking, hotels, road access, and future expansion. Finding that much land near a growing city is already difficult, so finding it without protected wildlife, environmental restrictions, residential neighborhoods, or legal disputes is even harder. Before construction begins, years can disappear obtaining approvals, relocating infrastructure, negotiating with property owners, and completing environmental studies. Only after those steps can physical construction truly begin. Then comes one of the most expensive pieces of infrastructure in the entire project: the runway. Many people think of a runway as nothing more than a long strip of concrete. It isn't. A modern runway is an engineered structure designed to absorb the repeated impact of aircraft, weighing hundreds of tons, while operating safely in extreme heat, freezing temperatures, heavy rain, and constant daily use. Every layer beneath the surface is carefully designed to support those loads for decades. Drainage systems, duct lighting, navigation equipment, safety areas, all of it must meet strict aviation standards. Even a small mistake can delay certification for months, and every delay creates another problem: interest. Airports are almost never built entirely with cash. Large infrastructure projects depend heavily on borrowed money. The moment financing is released, interest payments begin, not when the airport opens, not when passengers arrive, not when airlines start paying fees. The very day construction funding becomes available. That means every month of delay costs real money before the airport earns a single dollar. Construction overruns become far more expensive than most people imagine. A project delayed by 1 year doesn't simply cost more materials, it also accumulates another year of financing costs, contractor expenses, maintenance, and administrative overhead. Large infrastructure projects around the world have demonstrated how quickly those costs can multiply. A technical issue discovered late in construction can force redesigns across multiple systems. Regulators may require additional testing. Safety standards can change before completion. One delayed system often affects dozens of others, because nearly everything inside a modern airport is connected. Electrical systems, security equipment, fire protection, baggage handling, air traffic technology, passenger information displays, backup power. None of these operate independently. If one major system fails inspection, opening day moves further into the future, and every postponed opening means another month without passengers, another month without airlines, another month without revenue. That's why experienced infrastructure investors often say building the airport is only half the challenge. Opening it on time is the other half. And even after the first aircraft finally lands, the business model most people imagine still isn't the one generating the majority of long-term value. Because the runway is only the beginning. Once an airport finally opens, most people assume the hard part is over. Planes begin landing, passengers start arriving, shops open their doors, money starts flowing. But that's only part of the story. Because an airport doesn't earn money from a single source. It operates several businesses at the same time. The first is what the aviation industry calls aeronautical revenue. This is the money airlines pay to use the airport itself. Every aircraft that lands pays a landing fee. Aircraft parking generates additional charges. Airlines lease gates where passengers board their flights. Passengers also generate airport service charges that help fund terminal operations. On paper, it sounds like an incredibly profitable system. Thousands of flights, millions of passengers, billions of dollars moving through one location. But here's what surprises many people. Most airports cannot simply charge whatever they want. Large international airports often operate as natural monopolies. If an airline wants to serve a particular city, there may be only one practical airport available. Without regulation, airports could continue increasing prices year after year. That's why governments and aviation regulators in many countries place limits on airport charges. Those limits protect airlines and passengers from excessive fees while ensuring airports continue investing in infrastructure. As a result, airport operators constantly search for another way to grow profits. And that's where the business model becomes much more interesting. Because the runway isn't the most profitable part of an airport. The terminal is. Think about your own experience. After passing through security, you probably have an hour or more before boarding. You can't leave. You've already cleared security. You're carrying your luggage. You're waiting. From a business perspective, that's an incredibly valuable customer. Every coffee shop, every restaurant, every bookstore, every luxury boutique, every duty-free store, they're all competing for the same traveler. Unlike a shopping mall, passengers cannot simply drive to another location. They're already inside the airport. That creates one of the most valuable retail environments in the world. Airport operators understand this extremely well. Many modern terminals are carefully designed to guide passengers past shops before they ever reach their gates. What appears to be ordinary architecture is often carefully planned commercial design. Wide walkways, bright storefronts, comfortable seating, digital advertising. Everything encourages passengers to spend just a little more time and money inside the terminal. For retailers, that opportunity is worth paying for. Instead of simply renting a shop, many businesses agree to share a percentage of their sales with the airport. If sales increase, airport income increases as well. That creates an incentive for airports to improve the passenger experience. More comfortable terminals often lead to higher spending, and higher spending creates stronger financial results without increasing airline fees. Parking follows the same principle. Many travelers focus on airline ticket prices. Very few think about parking. But for airport operators, parking can become one of the most profitable parts of the entire business. A parking garage requires relatively little staff compared to a runway or terminal. Once the infrastructure exists, every occupied parking space generates additional revenue. Business travelers leaving their cars for several days, families going on vacation for a week, premium covered parking located close to the terminal. Airport parking quietly produces millions of dollars every year. Ground transportation adds another layer. Ride-sharing companies, taxi operators, rental car businesses, hotel shuttle services. Many pay airport access fees or lease space inside airport property. To passengers, these services simply make travel easier. To airports, they create another reliable income stream. Cargo operations are equally important. Not every aircraft carries only passengers. Every day, airports move electronics, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, fresh food, luxury goods, and industrial supplies across international borders. Cargo airlines pay for warehouse space, aircraft parking, handling services, and logistics facilities. Some airports generate a significant portion of their income from freight rather than tourism. In many cases, cargo continues operating even when passenger travel slows. That diversification makes airport businesses far more resilient than many people realize. But earning revenue is only half the equation. Keeping an airport running is incredibly expensive. Unlike many businesses, airports cannot simply reduce expenses because fewer customers arrive. Runways still require inspections. Security checkpoints remain operational. Fire and rescue teams must stay ready around the clock. Air traffic systems require constant maintenance. Electricity powers enormous terminals every hour of every day. Whether 10 million passengers arrive or 20 million, most of those costs remain. That's why airports rely so heavily on steady passenger growth. Higher traffic spreads those fixed costs across more travelers. The business becomes more efficient. Lower traffic has the opposite effect. One of the clearest examples came during the COVID-19 pandemic. Passenger numbers collapsed almost overnight. Flights disappeared, terminals emptied, retail stores closed, parking lots became almost deserted, but airports couldn't simply shut everything down. Security remained, maintenance continued. Debt repayments still arrived every month. The bills kept coming even when passengers didn't. Many airports responded by expanding cargo operations wherever possible. Freight became a temporary lifeline while passenger demand slowly recovered. That period reminded investors of something important. Airports may look like guaranteed businesses. They're not immune to global events, a health crisis, economic recession, geopolitical conflict, fuel price shocks. Each can affect passenger demand in ways that are impossible to predict. That's why successful airport investors think in decades rather than quarters. They're willing to tolerate temporary disruptions because they believe long-term air travel will continue growing. History has generally supported that view. As economies expand, as tourism increases, as international trade grows, passenger numbers usually recover and eventually reach new highs. For airports, patience is often just as important as capital. Ultimately, airports are far more than places where airplanes take off and land. They're transportation hubs, retail destinations, real estate businesses, parking operators, cargo centers, infrastructure assets, and long-term investment platforms, all combined into a single operation. That's what makes the airport business model so fascinating. On the surface, airports appear to make money from airplanes. In reality, airplanes simply bring customers. The real business happens everywhere else, and perhaps that's the biggest lesson. The most successful businesses rarely rely on a single source of income. They build multiple revenue streams around one essential service. Airports perfected that strategy decades ago. Every arriving passenger creates opportunities far beyond a boarding pass. A cup of coffee, a parking ticket, a rental car, a meal, a duty-free purchase, a hotel booking. Individually, each transaction seems small. Combined across millions of travelers, every year they become one of the most resilient infrastructure businesses in the world. So the next time you walk through an airport, look beyond the runway, because you're not just passing through a transportation hub. You're walking through one of the most sophisticated business models ever built.